Today is Sunday, the 21st of November, and autumn is quickly giving way to winter. It's getting much colder out there this weekend. Welcome to my latest YouTube episode on Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenian matters, and this is my number 26. A week or so ago, we heard of the fighting that took place between Armenia and Azerbaijan on the eastern border of the Syunik region in Armenia. There were reported casualties, unfortunate deaths, wounded people, captives, and it highlighted once more the untenable, let alone tenuous situation in that neck of the woods. But one aspect of the attacks that went unnoticed is the situation of displaced Armenians from Artsakh who live in Sisyan, in Ishkhanasar, in Goris. These families, amongst others, have been displaced from the neighboring Kashatagh region of Nagorno-Karabakh. Why? Because of the war in 2020, which resulted in the loss by Armenia of considerable territories in Karabakh itself, in addition to the territories that were occupied and belonged to Azerbaijan anyway. Now, these refugees from Karabakh, who had found succor and refuge in that part of Armenia, now face further displacement within sovereign Armenian territory. Why? Because of the tensions, because of the conflict, because of the ongoing war, and because President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan is directing his irredentist policies towards Syunik or Zangezur region of Armenia proper. Now you might say, why? We always thought that this was a war that focused on the enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh. Why is it now manifesting itself with increasing cruelty and uncertainty into Armenia? Well, some people have said that it's simply because during Soviet times, before these Southern Caucasian countries gained their independence, there was no clear delineation or demarcation of the borders. And therefore, none of these countries know exactly where their frontiers or borders are. Now, there is some truth of that, but I do not believe that it's solely because this violence is solely because of attempts to control the frontiers as defined previously by Soviet cartographers. I think there is something more sinister going on here. And it's because, in my opinion, Azerbaijan, with full Turkish support, and this is important to underline because Azerbaijan would be less daring if it did not have fully President Erdogan's support, it is trying to create enough fear amongst those Armenians in that region who've been refugees and who have suffered the war of 2020 in order to leave the region so it can create the Zangezur corridor that will connect the Turkic world via South Armenia. In other words, that will create a corridor going through Armenia proper from Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan, the exclave of Nakhichevan, and that means that there is a connection there already with Azerbaijan and Turkey and the exclave via Armenian proper homeland. Now, this is quite interesting because If you go back to the agreement that President Putin put together, I think rather quickly, on the 9th of November 2020, so that there is a ceasefire in the war that was raging over Nagorno-Karabakh, one of the understandings was that this would be part of the agreement, part of the discussions, part of the makeup of the future relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And this has created a lot of problems because we're not talking about simply tweaking a little bit the borders here and there. We are talking about a corridor going smack through Armenian property into the exclave of Nakhichevan. And the question that immediately comes to mind is not even so much whether that corridor is permissible or not, according to that rather hurried and dubious agreement. It is more a question of who controls that corridor, who monitors that corridor, who protects that corridor, whose corridor is it going through Armenian sovereign territories. So, in a sense, now the tensions are moving away from Nagorno-Karabakh, the enclave, and into Armenia proper. Of course, we have Russia as the sole power, really, who has any real influence on both sides. I can't see anybody else who has that kind of power because it's got its monitors, its soldiers, its troops there on the ground. And it is, in a sense, both trying to preserve the peace and also to mediate between the two parties. But there is nobody else. The OSCE Minsk group is not working. Now, I'm not going to go now, I don't have the time to go into why it's not working. It's not because of a lack of attempts or not wanting to, but it's also because Azerbaijan thinks that the OSCE group work has expired as a consequence of the war in Nagorno-Karabakh, the gains, the territorial gains by Azerbaijan, and the new realities on the ground. It thinks that the OSCE Minsk group no longer has any real input. I disagree with that. So there is this mishmash of Russia, OSCE, Armenian fears in the region and across the whole country, and the agreement of November 2020. Now, to facilitate a little bit what I'm saying, and in order that I'm not left talking a little bit obliquely, I would put in the description box two articles. The first article focuses, it's from the Monitor, and it focuses on Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's attempts to control the region through different guises. He's using the carrot a couple of times and then he's using the stick in order to form that pan-Turkic idea or reality that he so much wants to see happen in the region. It would give you a taste of where the politics are in the region. But equally importantly, in order to flesh out far more what I just tried to say in a few very short minutes, I will also put in the description box an article that appeared in Al Jazeera written by Robin Forestier Walker. And it basically explains the situation as he sees it. And he quotes in his article a woman analyst, Olesya Vartanyan, from Crisis Group, for whom I have a lot of time and regard. And she basically is quoted in that article in terms of what is happening in that part of the world. So you can read those two articles and make your own minds up. Now, Let me here come back to a point I've made in the past and for which I've been criticized. Excoriated is not an exaggerated word by some quarters and circles, for having suggested that our attention as Armenians, and I'm part of that tribe, that Armenians should focus now on the future well-being and safety of the Republic of Armenia, and not only bang on about Nagorno-Karabakh. Why? Now, let me make that clear. It's not that I'm saying that Nagorno-Karabakh does not matter. It's not that I'm saying that there is no history there, there is no culture there, there is no religion there, there aren't any binding, very strong binding links between Armenians and the enclave. No. It's not that I'm dismissing those points. It's not that I say Nagorno-Karabakh rather than Artsakh because I don't want to use the word Artsakh. It's because the whole world, minus Armenians, know it as Nagorno-Karabakh and not as Artsakh. What I'm trying to say, and what I've tried to say in the past, and I'm seeing this happen now with some measure of concern, is that as the tensions and the violence and the war and the struggle moves to Armenia, we should realize as Armenians that it's the republic itself that needs protection, assistance, and lobbying far more than the enclave alone. So when people, whether lay people, politicians, clerics, or whoever stands there and talks about Karabakh because it's an Armenian passion-moving subject, we should not forget that there is something bigger at stake now, and that is Armenia itself. And this is why I divide this into two parts. If we're thinking only of tactical moves, then fine. Armenians are focusing on Nagorno-Karabakh. They don't want the world to forget it or to forget the dangers there where Azeris and Armenians are living cheek by jowl in a very small parcel of land. But tactical moves, in my experience, much wider and broader experience from the Middle East, North Africa, and Gulf regions than from the Southern Caucasus, I admit, are not the answer. The answer should be strategic. And for strategic, we should think a bit beyond our noses and beyond immediate emotions or passions. And this is why I would say that the internal should be met with the external considerations. And for that, I would like also to put in the description box a few minutes, the usual Insights program that Eric Hakopian from CivilNet TV has, I think once weekly, in which he talked about diplomacy and Armenians. And I thought this was a very, very good episode because he pretty much simplified, tabulated, recited the homework of Armenian diplomats across the world today, what they should do, how they should do it in order to lobby for and promote the Armenian interests. Why? Because frankly, nobody else is doing it. The Americans are not doing it. Biden is absent from the scene. The EU is not doing it. Brussels is pretty much absent from the scene. The OSCE Minsk group is not really functional. Nobody is, even Russia. Do you honestly think that Russia is only there for Armenian interests? Russia is there for its own interests primarily, and its own interests dictate that there is more peace than war at the moment in that neck of the woods. So I would suggest that you basically listen also, other than reading the two articles I mentioned earlier, that you listen to Eric Hagopian and what he's got to say in terms of what our diplomats, what our politicians, what the foreign ministry, what the ambassadors across the world should do. It's not only a question of photo opportunities where you combine church and state, or where you show that you're going and talking to other Armenians. That is not what matters. What matters is to go, and I've said this a zillion times, is to go beyond talking to Armenians. You don't need to convince an Armenian, no matter how lukewarm or how heated that Armenians' passions are. You don't need to talk to them. You need to talk to the outside world. And that is one of the primary functions of diplomats and ambassadors. It is not to make policies as much as to sell, market, and lobby for those policies. So this is basically where I am at the moment. I leave it with you. I'm fully aware that I purposely do not go about giving you solutions. It's not my solutions that matter, and it's not my job to give solutions. It's my job perhaps to raise a few points, a couple of flag a couple of warning signals, and then hope that some people will think about what is happening in Syunik, what is happening to the Republic, and how it should be dealt with. And perhaps I could end, if I manage it technically, because, you know, I'm not very good with technical matters. If I can manage it, I'm going to share with you for 1 second a photo. There we go. I think I managed it. This photo, frankly, impacted me a lot. I kept looking at that child. And you know that, what is that photo? That is the photo of a child taken in Gornizor. Where is Gornizor? It's a village in the Der municipality of the Syunik province in Armenia. And that photo was taken by Brandon Balayan, who's a freelance photojournalist. And he works for also, I think, for Kuyriks being an Armenian NGO that helps empower Armenian women. I wanted to share this photo with you because that look of that little young boy from the window in that part of the world that is now part of the conflict really impacted me a lot. And I think if anything makes sense, it is that photo. It is, what is the fault of that little boy sitting at the window when he's got the future, the whole future ahead of him, but he doesn't know what that future is. And frankly, today, nor do I. Take care.